toe right there, because the weight transfer on the return of serve is going to be much different than the weight transfer on the ground stroke. But if you see the setup right there, as I freeze frame it right there, the weight is on the outside foot, and that foot is just picking up, just was on his toe a second ago, but now he's going to go and step in before he hit it. But I will show you when I get to the point of contact and weight transfer part of the video. So right now, it's just the setup is just weight on the outside foot and drag your toe, and versus putting the weight on the back foot and stepping in. So let's go to another difference. Now this difference is very, very, very subtle. What I want you to notice right there is the angle, I call it the steepness of the racket, the angle between the forearm right here, the racket, okay, and the wrist and forearm right there when he is hitting a regular topspin backhand, where when he is about to return a backhand. You will see that on the right hand side the racket is much more upright than it is on the left. Now when you're returning a serve, you have to abbreviate your stroke. Well, the abbreviation of the stroke begins right there, right when you set up your racket. I have a good video right that really shows this of Fernando Gonzalez returning a serve and setting up. So I'm going to put Fernando right there. He's hitting a regular backhand, and I'm going to show you right now when I'm going to set him up. Now I want you to check out right here the angle. He's just got done split stepping. You see it's probably a first serve racket, and look at the difference in the steepness of the two right here. Watch this right here. So you see he's going to shorten up his stroke. Okay, still going to have a backswing, but he's going to shorten it up by dipping the racket head and not cocking the head up as much right there. And that right, a very subtle, very small difference, but especially when you're returning a first serve. Now if you return a second serve, you may get away with keeping the racket up a little higher, but if you return a hard first serve, try to remember to drop the racket head a little lower. So let's go back to Roger and comparing the both strokes. Now, this is where the biggest difference is going to come in, is called the power position. Now, if you've watched some of our videos, what I mean by the power position is when the racket goes literally right there. You can see the racket showing up behind his back right there, and the racket is actually going to be parallel to that fence and perpendicular to the backswing, where when he's hitting a topspin backhand, that racket really does not go as far back right there. And this is where the stroke shrinks. So it's not a blocking motion like a lot of people say. You still have a backswing, but you shorten it up. And I'm going to show you right now a little bit better angle. This is going to show up a lot easier if we tape it, look at it from the side right there. So this is Roger right here hitting a regular topspin backhand. You can see really the steepness right here, how far back the racket is wrapped around, almost perpendicular to that to the back fence and pointing at the side fence right there, where right here it's a much shorter motion. So this is, like, to me, the biggest difference of the stroke. You're going to abbreviate your stroke. Make sure that you wrap the racket back all the way back behind you. Now let's move on to the a very subtle difference right there. Once again, is the roll of the left hand. Now, I'm sorry, a subtle similarity. The roll of the left hand. The left hand remains and stays on the throw of the racket, just as if you were hitting a regular backhand. So keep the left hand on the racket, and that will help you, just kind of help you set the racket below the fly of the ball. Also keep the racket low, so you can definitely hit from low to high right there. So don't let go of the left hand, and you'll see when he lets go his left hand, the left hand goes right by the left hip and lets go. And similar right there, the left hand is going to be released right as the left hand passes the left hip. So that right there is a similarity between the two. Now another similarity is the distance on the point of contact. You'll see that when Roger makes contact with the ball, except for the height, which we'll talk about in 1 second, the distance is about the same. He's making contact well out in front of the body, and the most important part of any backhand is what I call the little L, the 90-degree angle. You can see that the racket and his forearm at a 90-degree angle. This is where you guys are strongest. This is where you have the most leverage. So he's making contact out in front with the racket at a 90-degree angle. Now let's talk about the height right there. Usually when you're returning a serve, first serve or second serve, since the ball came from a much higher point, the ball is going to bounce higher, hence the point of contact is going to be a little higher. When you're hitting a ground stroke, the hitting zone You want it to be anywhere between your knees to your waist. But sometimes you're going to be forced to make contact higher on the return. So it's okay. Don't try to back off. You got to deal with the ball about waist level. So that right there, except for the height, really everything is the same. Now let's go, as I mentioned earlier, to the footwork, to the weight transfer. And this is really a very, very, very big difference between the two. Now you will see when Roger is hitting a regular topspin backhand, you're going to step first, like any ground stroke. You're going to step first, and then you're going to swing. Where here, this is when that little toe dragging, I'm going to go back to, I showed at the beginning when they had a side view right there. And you will see later in the common threads analysis part of the video that every single pro does that. He is going to delay the step right there as his weight is on the back foot, since really you have a shorter stroke. Okay, so you're going to need to get power somewhere, just like a volley. Remember, on the volley, you're going to make contact first and then step. Well, same thing on the return. Watch. Roger's going to kick that leg out as he's making contact. So he's really using his footwork to help to compensate for the shorter backswing. So he's going to make contact, and watch when the front leg is going to land. That front leg is going to land well after contact right there, where on the ground stroke, he actually made contact. He stepped in well before contact. So if you want to get low power into your return, make sure you don't step too soon. Okay, delay the step right there. So let's analyze now the final part of the stroke, which will be the follow through, and let's check out what the swing path does. Now, when you're hitting a topspin backhand, you can drive through the ball a little bit more. You get a little bit of a wrist release, but still finishing up at a 90-degree angle. And you will see when you make contact right there, you will see that in the common threads later, that after making contact right here, the racket really goes up. So you really don't drive through the ball. This is not a blocking motion because you still have a swing right there, but you go up, make contact, and then go up and not through. Okay? That was the comparison of Roger Federer's topspin backhand to his topspin backhand ground stroke. Now, let's go on to the common threads of the topspin backhand return to serve. The first common thread of the return to serve is a split step. The split step is oxygen to your return to serve. If you don't split step, you will never master how to return a one-handed topspin backhand return or a return to serve, period. What the split step is right when your opponent is making contact. Watch where Fernando Verdasco's feet are off the ground. So when your opponent makes contact, your feet must not be on the ground. I'm going to show you how a couple pros do it. You're going to see Sergei Skarkovsky taking a couple steps forward and hop right when his opponent is making contact. Richard Gasquet takes a bigger hop than most players do. Both of his feet off the ground at contact. Justine Henin, very subtle, but nonetheless off the ground when her opponent made contact. Roger Federer will take one step forward and then hop, time it just perfectly right when his opponent is making contact. So will Tommy Robredo, and every single other pro on the tour or great players will always get their feet off the ground when the ball is in their opponent's racket. During the first chapter of this video, I showed you how Roger Federer hits a one-handed topspin backhand return. Now I will show you the common threads of that return, duplicated by 7 top professionals. So let's begin this first common thread by watching how Roger Federer and everyone else steps out with the outside leg and drags the inside toe, delaying the step since the step is going to happen after contact. So there's the toe drag, and there's the weight that just shifted to the outside leg during Roger's turn. So we're going to start with Alberto Montañez, making the exact same moves, shifting his weight while the toe is dragging. So is Ivan Lubicic. Justine Henin, setting up in an open stance, dragging the outside foot, because that outside foot will come in later after contact. So they're delaying the weight transfer, the final weight transfer, by dragging the toe but setting up on the outside leg to Nico Almagro, and finishing up with Richard Gasquet. So the first move of this common thread is to shift your weight to the outside leg, just like Roger did. Drag your toe during the shoulder turn. The second common thread is the abbreviation of the stroke. You'll see right here on the left frame how Roger really abbreviates his stroke going to the ball, and the difference when he's hitting a regular one-handed topspin ground stroke where the racket goes well behind him, has a big shoulder turn, and the racket goes all the way through. So you can noticeably see how the stroke is much shorter. So let's see how everyone else makes the exact same move that Roger does. There's Alberto Montañez right there, shortens up his stroke on his way to making contact. Luby as well. No power position. We hardly ever see the racket show up behind their backs as if they were going to hit a regular topspin backhand. Savvy or Sergey, very stroke gets a little flattened out. Same thing with Tommy Robredo, from there directly to the ball. Nico Almagro. And finally, Richard Gasquet, shortening up the backswing, no power position, and we hardly ever saw the racket appear behind those players, just like when Roger was hitting a regular 100 topspin backhand. You can see the big shoulder turn and the racket appearing behind his back. When you've mastered the 100 topspin backhand return to serve, and now you feel like you want to try to hit the ball a little harder, really go after that weak second serve, well, let me show you what Roger Federer does in order to get a little more power. Remember, since you can't really take a full backswing, you got to find power somewhere. Well, Roger's going to find it by using his legs, and I call that the scissor kick move. Watch how his back leg is going to go forward and his front leg is going to go back. So watch. We have the back leg is going to go forward right as he's making contact, and both legs are going to cross. And you're going to see that his front leg, the one he set up on, is going to go back, forming the shape of a scissor right here. So he's going to use his hips and his legs right there to create some power, and I call that the scissor kick backhand return. Justine Henin does the exact same thing. She will load up on the back foot, hold off on that step right there, and right before she's about to hit it, she's going to kick that front foot forward and throw the back foot back right there, and you will see the legs cross right there, making little scissors. So if you want to get more power, you can use the scissor kick backhand. Same thing as Tommy Haas does it. They all do it. Once again, another common thread when looking to hit power. Watch, this is the outside foot right here. That foot is going to go back while the back foot is going to come forward right there, creating power from the hips and the legs. So for more power, don't try to take a bigger swing. Instead, use your legs and use the scissor kick backhand return to serve. I'm going to tackle the next three common threads together since they happen in succession. The first one is going to be how Roger makes contact well out in front, and you'll see that his racket and hand are at 90 degrees. How he will step after contact is made, therefore shifting his weight after making contact, and finishing with the racket at a 90-degree angle, going up through the hitting zone versus through when hitting a topspin backhand. So let's go with Alberto Montañez. We'll see the point of contact is made well out in front. You can see that his weight is shifting after contact, maintains a 90-degree angle, going up versus through. Ljubicic making the exact same move, making contact in front. Notice the step after contact. We lose the racket for a second, but here it is at 90 degrees. The racket went up versus through. Justine Henin, same thing. Well out in front. Weight transfer after contact. Therefore, she hit the ball in stride, going up versus through. Sergei Skakovsky, same move. Contact first, weight transfer second, racket come up versus through. Tommy Robredo, contact, weight transfer, racket going up versus through. Nico Almagro and Richard Gasquet making the exact same move that Roger made. Well out in front, taking the ball in stride and going up versus through. Now that you understand how to hit a one-handed topspin backhand return to serve, Don't forget that you need to go out and practice that shot. The return to serve is one of the least practiced shots in the game of tennis. So good luck, and hopefully your one-handed topspin backhand return will improve.